Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy, brought to you today by Josh Edison and M. Dentith. Hello, it's the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy. It's me, Josh Edison, in Auckland, New Zealand. It's them, Dr. M. RX Dentith in Guangzhou, China. How are things? Everything just normal laws of physics?
Sorry, Josh, I'm just trying to hold things down at the moment. There's a lot of stuff floating in my office. Oh, God, the microphone's moving around the place. This will look great on video. Absolutely great on video. Really selling it for the 12 people who watch the video episodes. Yes.
But other than that, things just as normal.
Oh, I mean, I'm feeling lighter on my feet. I mean, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my back. I feel like I'm bumping into a lot of objects at the moment because they're just floating around me. I mean, frankly, I'm feeling there's a lack of gravity in my life at the moment, Josh. An absolute lack of gravity.
Well, that's all the puns I can stand. Maybe we should actually Josh, get into the
none
main
of those
topic
were
of this
actually
episode.
Puns. None of those were puns.
Well, I suppose not. No. What were they?
I mean, a pun is only going to work if you've set up the situation and then a person makes wordplay based upon that situation. We have not set up the situation, so it just sounds like we're speaking absolute nonsense. Now, admittedly, listeners to the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy are used to us talking absolute nonsense. What they aren't used to us doing is actually foreshadowing the nonsense we're about to discuss.
Yes, so we should get straight ahead into it. But we're not going to, because you and I both know what we're going to be talking about. So I maintain that those were puns because you knew what you were doing and I knew. Even if the audience doesn't know what you're doing, I do, and you do, and I think that counts.
Something's really bringing you down, isn't it?
Something's weighing heavily on me. Yes. No, stop it.
I'll stop it when I'm dead.
Stop it. Okay, well, then let's play it.
And you can't reach across the internet divide and kill me, at least not yet.
Not yet.
If patrons give us enough money, Josh will use that money to buy a robotic arm, which will be installed in my apartment in Guangzhou to allow him to throttle me remotely at a moment's notice.
That's the goal, really. That's just, what more could any person want but the ability to throttle someone remotely? Anyway, that's pie in the sky thinking for now. Let's play a chime and then try to make some sense of everything we've just said and done?
Let's.
Right, so actually, if you listen to the last episode, we did. I'm pretty sure in a startling break with tradition, we actually said what we were probably going to be talking about in the next episode, in the previous episode. So if you were paying attention, you'd know that what we want to talk to you about today is Project Anchor. This mysterious NASA project that's been doing some numbers on the social medias and what have you. It's an interesting theory. So perhaps we should look at it in a bit of detail. Just start things off easy. Dr. Dentith, what is Project Anchor?
Well, according to my sources, and those sources are random social media posts on the internet, so of course, highly trustworthy sources. Project Anchor is a NASA project, so it's a National Aeronautic Space Association project in the US with a budget of 89 billion US buckaroos, and it is a project designed to survive a very particular event, which is at some point in the month of August this year, 2026, gravity is going to be turned off on the Earth for 7 seconds.
And as you can imagine, this will wreak some amount of havoc. So NASA, apparently what they're doing is building bunkers, because that's what NASA does. They build bunkers under the ground.
It's true. I mean, they are about the
That's
national aeronautics of the internal Earth. NASA's
yes.
really into its hollow Earth theories.
If there's one thing NASA likes doing, it's standing on the surface of the Earth and going downwards. That's what they're all about. And so they're going to do that. They're going to build bunkers for all the most important people in the world, so that they can ride out this brief gravitational anomaly. Apparently securing important buildings so that they aren't damaged, that they don't themselves float away, presumably, and that they also aren't damaged by things floating around and hitting them. Now, I've heard a couple of different variations of the story, and what exactly the cause of this loss of gravity is going to be. In some tellings of the story, Project Anchor is somehow the cause of the gravitational anomaly, but most of the time, when I've heard people talking about it, it's that Project Anchor is the response to this gravitational anomaly, and the claim is that this event, we're going to get gravitational waves from two different black holes intersecting over the planet Earth for a period of 7 seconds, and that the intersection of those two gravitational waves will have the effect of negating gravity entirely on our planet for that time.
I mean, I can already spot a number of issues, but please do continue.
Right, well, and obviously this is conspiratorial, because Project Anchor is being kept from the public at large because they don't want to cause mass panic, because they're expecting a wide amount of death and destruction to result from this gravitational anomaly. But the thinking supposedly is that there's nothing they can do to stop it, so they're just keeping it entirely under wraps so that they don't add mass panic in the lead up to the event, on top of all the, causing extra havoc on top of the havoc that's already going to be caused by it. So, I mean, the puns do write themselves. This is indeed a weighty topic, if it's true, but
one which deserves a certain amount of gravitas.
Gravitas, indeed, or at least the second half of that. So how do we know about this then, if NASA's been covering it all up?
Well, apparently the project was leaked in November of 2024. And like all good leaks, it first appeared on TikTok. So it started with a TikTok user by the name of fiery_by_nature, who put up a video about Project Anchor. She claims that she heard about Project Anchor from a post that randomly came up for her on her For You page on TikTok. So even though it became public knowledge because of this particular post, it does appear that there was an earlier post, or at least it is alleged there was an earlier post on TikTok which actually revealed information to the leaker herself.
Yes, this fiery by nature user, when I've been looking at articles about Project Anchor, her post is the one that gets mentioned. So that seems to be the earliest one that people can find that talks about this, but she suggests she got the information from somewhere else, so it is a little bit unclear. That, I think her post was late last year, but it was really around the start of this year that it really took off. And there's one particular post on Instagram that seems to be the main one that gets forwarded around, because this is the one that contains all of the details and the facts and figures and a bit of evidence isn't quite the right word, but some more claims, I guess. More claims.
It is the most detailed pre-say of Project Anchor that we have.
Yep. So this Instagram post reads, "In August, the world will lose gravity for 7 seconds."
Josh, I feel you should put gravitas in your voice.
In August, the world will lose gravity for 7 seconds. NASA knows they're preparing, but won't tell us why.
In November 2024, a secret NASA document titled Project Anchor leaked online. The project's budget is $89 billion, and its goal is to survive a 7-second gravitational anomaly.
Key facts: duration, 7.3 seconds. Expected casualties, 40 to 60 million.
What will happen? The first 2 seconds. Everything not secured will rise. People, vehicles, animals. Seconds 3 to 4. Objects will continue to rise 15 to 20 meters. Seconds 5 to 6. Panic and chaos will ensue as people hit ceilings. 7 seconds. Gravity returns and everything falls from height.
Expected consequences, 40 million deaths from falls, infrastructure destruction, economic collapse lasting over 10 years, mass panic.
Reason for the anomaly. The intersection of 2 gravitational waves from black holes predicted in 2019 with a probability of 94.7%. NASA has known about this for 5 years.
What NASA is doing: building underground bunkers for essential personnel, developing securing systems for buildings.
Who will get spots in the bunkers? Government leaders, scientists, military personnel, and selected citizens with genetic diversity.
Why they're silent? An announcement would trigger mass panic and chaos. Better to have 40 million unprepared victims than 8 billion in a state of panic.
The leak has been ignored by the media as conspiracy theory, but an independent physicist confirmed the intersection of gravitational waves. His paper was retracted, and he has since disappeared.
What you can do: follow the civilian survival protocol. Stay indoors with a low ceiling. Lie on the floor face down. Face down? That would mean when you come back down, you land right on your face.
I know, it's bad.
That's bad advice. Hold on to something secured.
20 months until the event. NASA knows. Governments are preparing. They won't tell you.
So strong stuff indeed. Tell me about this independent physicist who confirmed it, but then his paper was retracted and he since disappeared. What's that guy's name? What was his paper called?
Josh, the answer to both of those questions is we don't know. The paper is never mentioned by name. The author is never mentioned by name. The journal it was published in is never mentioned by name. There is no evidence for the author, the paper, or the journal. It's just an assertion in an Instagram post.
But it's been doing the rounds, that post, and others commenting upon it. Now, obviously, NASA had to respond once this started hitting the news and people started talking about it. So NASA, they issued a statement. They issued an actual statement. They said the Earth will not lose gravity. Earth's gravity, or total gravitational force, is determined by its mass. The only way for the Earth to lose gravity would be for the Earth system, the combined mass of its core, mantle, crust, ocean, terrestrial water, and atmosphere, to lose mass. And I believe others have noted that gravitational waves don't actually work the way people are suggesting they. I mean, we know that waves do intersect and they can cancel one another out if they're in different polarities, or they can add together and stuff like that. But gravity waves, they're not like
people
that.
Are treating gravitational waves like sound waves and thinking, well, 2 waves intersecting with the same kind of. That is right. Intersecting. That's what it is. Intersecting with the same adverse amplitude will cancel one another out and cause silence. But gravitational waves don't work that way. And also, the black holes that they're talking about don't exist. And frankly, it's all just nonsense.
Well, I mean, you say that, but maybe we'll just have to wait and see.
You're doing the precautionary thing, which is, I
think so.
It might not be true, but at the same time, we can lie face down on a floor and hold on to things secured. And maybe there's a possibility that actually we are wrong and the conspiracy theorists are right in this particular case. So we should prepare as if the event is going to occur. That's what you're getting at there, aren't you,
That's what I'm getting at, yes. So, but I mean, we need to know when to prepare. When is this gravitational event supposed to happen? Actually, before you answer that, what's today's date? date that
Today's
we're
date
recording?
is the 13th of August, and that's both the 13th of
13th of
August,
August.
China Standard Time and New Zealand Standard Time.
Right. Yes. No, it just slipped my mind. I'm sure that won't be relevant in just a few seconds. So tell me, when is the gravitational anomaly talked about in Project Anchor? When's that going to happen?
I mean, let me just work out the calculations here. So it's the 13th of August now. The date of the event is on this particular point in time. I'm assuming that's US time as opposed to, say, New Zealand or China time. So if we take that into account, it was yesterday.
UTC? It was yesterday. Yep. August 12th, 2026 at 2:33 or 14:33 UTC. I never know what that works out to at local time anyway. So yes, it was supposed to happen yesterday. Did you notice 40 million people dying yesterday?
I mean, no, I was quite busy dealing with a broken refrigerator and an air conditioning unit. So I mean, maybe a mass death event kind of slipped me by while I was trying to communicate with the handy person in a language that neither of us understood.
Yeah, well,
did you notice anything?
Well, I've been looking at news websites, and precious little, almost nothing about gravitational anomalies causing people to float into the sky, then plummet to their deaths. It doesn't seem like it really happened at all.
Yeah, it does seem a bit odd, doesn't it? I don't think the Earth lost gravity yesterday or early this morning.
No, so I mean, what we're sort of obliquely hinting at is that this thing that people said was going to happen didn't so much happen as not happen at all. To the surprise,
which is a bit curious
of pretty much no one, I think. But now we actually get to point and laugh. Perhaps what have people been saying about this? Do we know?
Well,
has anyone said actually?
That's the other thing. So because the event was meant to have occurred yesterday our time, we couldn't really do any research into what people think about the event not happening until earlier today. And I'm not seeing any chatter about the event not happening at all. It's almost as if people were talking about Project Anchor, but no one was really believing the claims about Project Anchor. And this might suggest that maybe it wasn't widely believed, if believed at all.
Well, no. I mean, I'm just right now looking at Fiery by Nature's TikTok, and she's got a follow-up post that doesn't even have bloody dates on them that I can see. She has a follow-up post where she mentions NASA's effect, where NASA says that the Earth isn't going to can't lose gravity because gravity comes from mass. Yeah, the thing that we read out just a minute ago. So I'm not going to bother watching it all the way to the end, actually, but she seems to be saying, okay, yeah, well, NASA said it's not going to happen. So the one person who everyone was referring to doesn't seem to have placed a lot of stock into it, and I haven't. Yeah, it's hard to say. I guess it's so soon after the time when it was supposed to happen that who knows, but.
Yeah, but there doesn't seem to be much in the way, if any, discussion anywhere about I thought it was meant to happen today. There doesn't seem to be any reaction to the Earth not losing gravity. And no, you might be right. Maybe the people who were expecting it to occur threw out all their phones and electronic devices in preparation for the apocalypse and now driving around the outback of Australia, waiting for the eventual fuel wars to occur. But it does seem a little bit odd.
Now, one thing that's interesting is that there was yesterday, on the 12th of August, a solar eclipse, which was visible from various areas in the Northern Hemisphere. And so some people have, and this, obviously, we know when eclipses are going to happen, and NASA indeed did have on their website where they document when eclipses are going to be occurring. They've been saying for a while now, yes, on August the 12th, there's going to be this eclipse that you can see in the Northern Hemisphere. maybe that's coincidence, or maybe that could be part of how this thing got started, that people saw, oh, there is going to be a celestial event of some kind on August the 12th, and things snowballed from there. But that's
I mean, I would be curious to know
speculation.
whether that is a coincidence or someone was slapping a known date onto a vapid conspiracy theory. It's really hard to tell because we have so little information about the source of this conspiracy theory in the first place. We just have this particular post, a claim that Fiery by Nature saw information about this earlier on TikTok, but no evidence of it, which might suggest that she is the inventor of this claim in the first place. I mean, this could be a birds aren't real thing all over again, where for people who aren't aware, there was a claim going around several years ago that the young folk on TikTok were idiots and they were spreading conspiracy theories around that birds aren't real, just showing that millennials and younger are the most stupid people of all time. But the real twist here was it turned out that older people were the idiots because no one believed that birds weren't real. It was a game being played on TikTok, a kind of game which was going, look, give someone a ridiculous proposition, such as birds do not exist, and then see how convincing they can be in asserting that particular claim. So the birds aren't real phenomenon was a game being played on social media that was misinterpreted by older people and taken as evidence of stupidity when it was in fact evidence of creativity. And maybe someone was trying to do the same thing with the Project Anchor hypothesis. Let's see if we can create evidence, I'm putting here in scare quotes, for a claim that no one really believes, but wouldn't it be fun to kind of pursue?
Yeah, yeah. So nothing much seems to have come of it. It did seem like you had this wacky idea that was bubbling around the social media a little bit, and it was wacky enough that when other people heard about it, people who could write public interest type stories for news websites said, "Hey, look at this wacky thing that people are saying," and there was a story in it, but there doesn't seem to be much more. So that seems to be about all there is to say about Project Anchor, and we're only about 20 minutes into this episode. So perhaps then what we should do is relate this back to other times we've talked about conspiracy theories that predicted various events that never came to pass, and make this a stealth back to the conspiracy episode.
Ooh,
Because we did back all the way back at episode 170. I didn't actually look up the date of that, but that was quite some years ago now. We talked about sort of prophetic conspiracy theories, and it was inspired by QAnon, because you may not remember, but QAnon these days has just become the amorphous umbrella term for just anything. Oh, actually, I haven't heard a lot about QAnon lately, now that I think about it.
I mean, you do get the occasional discussion.
Most of what they wanted. So
yeah. So there's the occasional discussion of Trump making a post on Truth Social which uses QAnon-related language. And there are still figures from the QAnon community who are appearing on right-wing influencer podcasts and the like. So the elements of QAnon are still around, but there doesn't seem to be this kind of coalesced QAnon movement that we saw pre-Trump's first election success. So to a certain extent, it has moved on, and you might be right in thinking it's moved on because in large part they got what they desired anyway with both the first and second Trump presidency.
Yes, but nevertheless, at the time we were talking about QAnon, which now that I look it up was April of 2018, so there we go, more than 8 years ago. Good God. At the time, QAnon had not yet turned into what it became, which was just the umbrella term underneath which all these various sort of right-wingish conspiracy theories amalgamated.
So basically, any deep state conspiracy theory became a QAnon one, yes.
They all just merged into QAnon. But originally, QAnon was another one of these prophetic conspiracy theories, because the earliest claims it was making is that we're all about the fact that Donald Trump was fighting against the deep state, and all of these people, all the people that right-wingers hated, your Hillary Clintons and your David Podestas and all of that.
And your Barack Obamas.
And your Barack Obamas. They were all about to be arrested. Trump and his people were going to swoop in. They were going to drain the swamp. Everyone was going to be arrested and everything was going to be great. And you don't have to do a thing. You can just sit back.
And you could look at photos and find evidence of this. You'd see Obama wearing pants. Why was he wearing pants? Because he had an ankle bracelet on. That's the only reason why Barack Obama would wear pants, to cover up the ankle bracelet that had been put on him because he'd already been arrested.
Yeah. Well, that was sort of that was a couple of steps along, really. Initially, they were saying this is going to happen, and as I recall, there were dates given at some times, or at least there would be cryptic or something very important is going to happen on this date, and then eventually, after these claims that any day now all these people are going to be arrested and put in Guantanamo Bay, and yet these people were still very publicly walking around free as a bird, seemingly. Then you got in the claim saying, oh, but yes, but they've been tried in a secret tribunal, and now they're having to wear ankle monitors while they're out on bail or something. Yeah. But so that was an interesting look at how some people will double down on claims that something is going to happen, that something doesn't happen, and then do they drop it, or do they double down and come up with a reason that either says, okay, it hasn't happened yet, but it is still going to, or it actually has happened yet and you're just not aware. Because when it comes to the sort of, especially like the culty ones, the religious ones, we've all heard the stories of the cults that say the world's going to end on this date, and people actually sell all their possessions and then all gather in one place, and then nothing happens, and they all act a little bit embarrassed and have to suddenly buy their stuff back again or something. But that didn't seem to happen with QAnon. The story just mutated. But back in episode 170, back in 2018, we had a few or a couple of more mundane, less supernatural conspiracy theories.
You say less supernatural ones. One of the ones we're going to talk about goes really weird places towards the end.
Eventually, yes, it did go wacky at the end. So how about we start with that one? Talk to me about NESARA.
NESARA. So NESARA was the National Economic Security and Recovery Act. It was a set. I'm just literally reading the search result here, because otherwise I'm never going to remember what NESARA stands for. It was a set of proposed economic reforms for the United States suggested by a private citizen by the name of Harvey Francis Barnard during the 1990s. It was basically a way of working out how to get rid of income tax by putting in a national sales tax instead, and crucially, returning to a bimetallic currency as a basis for money. Now, Josh, why do people want to return to precious metals as a basis for their economy?
I have never been clear on that. I know people always go on about the gold standard. We need to go back to the gold standard. Glenn Beck, someone else who I haven't heard about for ages. He was big on gold. Alex Jones wanted us to collect rare earth metals or something like that. I've never actually been able to understand the arguments in favour of a gold standard.
I mean, it seems to be in part because these things are taken to be inherently valuable, unlike fiat currency, where the value is decided by the nature of trade. But the people who go, well, gold is naturally valuable, don't seem to realize it's naturally valuable only insofar as people are willing to spend money on it. Gold is valuable in the sense that it physically exists, unlike fiat currency, which is just a set of numbers on a spreadsheet. But gold's value is still decided by people making decisions about the value of gold, in the same respect that people make decisions about the value of a fiat currency. Owning gold doesn't naturally make you wealthy. It just means you've got money which is really, really, really hard to move around or transact with.
Yes, no, when I hear people talking about inherent value, that just tells me they don't know what the words inherent and value mean. Something can't be inherently valuable. Things only have valuable to human beings. A lump of gold on an uninhabited asteroid in the middle of space has no value to anything. But anyway, yeah, so this fellow, this Harvey Barnard, he tried to get Congress to pass his National Economy, Security and Recovery Act. That did not happen.
And he did this in the most academic way possible. He wrote a book called Draining the Swamp, Monetary and Fiscal Policy Reform, and then printed 1,000 copies to send to Congress, thinking that they would simply read the book and go, "Oh my God, this is the greatest book I've ever read. Let's pass this theory now." Which of course always works. That's why my book on the philosophy of conspiracy theories just naturally changed the way that everybody talks about conspiracy theories, because people innately recognize the quality of a good argument and immediately change their ways on the basis of the merits of such arguments.
That's how everything works always. Yeah.
Yes.
But then things get interesting. So Mr. Barnard, he published the text of his proposed bill online, and it was found by someone called Shiny Goodwin. And they were a shill for the Omega Trust, which apparently sold Omega units of prime European banknotes for as little as $100, which then, and here's where things sort of get prophetical. Eventually, these Omega units were going to roll over and return millions of dollars in profit. You'll be surprised to learn this did not happen.
Well, that's in part because of where these Omega units were being located.
In the firmament, in thin air, in the...
Well, it's in part because the data on the beneficiaries of these units was located in one of the World Trade Centers in New York City. And what happened to the World Trade Center in 2001?
Lots of people visited it.
I mean, a certain group of people visited it in a really novel way. Thus, we start making jokes about
obviously,
what happened on
obviously September 11. Yeah. Yes, no. In August of 2000, the feds went and arrested everyone behind the Omega Trust because it was obviously a scam, as people had put all their money into it and then nothing had come back. Apparently, yes, like you say, the explanations for why the money didn't eventuate involved alternate realities. UFOs apparently came in there. Claims that the US government didn't actually exist. Angelic intervention, apparently, some people purported as an explanation for why things hadn't worked out. But yes, so yeah, August 2000, people were arrested. But then supposedly all this data was destroyed during the World Trade Center attacks. And obviously then they get to chuck their conspiracy theories onto that and suggest that maybe that was the real reason why the Twin Towers were destroyed in a controlled demolition by the US government or something.
And I mean, and the real kicker here was that Barnard is still alive at the time that this is all going on. But he isn't aware in 2000, 2001 about what Shiny Goodwin is doing. He only learned about Shiny Goodwin and her promoting NESARA as something which Congress had passed but had kept secret in 2005. And this is actually just before his death. And he actually gets incredibly annoyed that people are using his good idea as the basis of essentially a scam, which they are continuing all the way up until 2010, although he dies beforehand, and just labels all of Shiny Goodwin's allegations as being a mere disinformation campaign, trading on his good idea.
Yes. Meanwhile, Shiny Goodness was towards the end referring
Sorry, you just
to
said Shiny Goodness, which I think is a great change, but not actually
would be
accurate.
better, but no. So we say shiny. It was SHAINI, so not actually shiny, but shiny. Goodwin rather was referring to herself as the Dove of Oneness by this point, and making various claims about the International Court of Justice, the Vatican, the Rockefellers, the gold standard again, and so on and so on and so on. Apparently this theory it didn't last, especially after everyone got arrested, and then even though it did carry on after 2001, from what I gather, anyone who tried to carry it on also invariably turned out to be some sort of a scammer. And eventually, once just everything collapsed into fraud, the whole thing kind of died out.
Yeah, I mean, there still seems to be some degree of NESARA stuff going on in the present day, because NESARA got replaced by GESARA, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. So it suddenly went from being not just a USA-related thing, but actually a global set of transactions, or at least policy changes being enacted by global elites. And that still seems to have at least some existence in the 2020s. But yes, it's no longer something that people talk about a lot. It has gone from something which was relatively big in the very, very early 2000s to something which had a flash in the pan moment in the 2010s, and is now something that only people like us talk about on podcasts that not many people listen to.
But then when we were talking about this many years ago, we went from NESARA to a similar sort of financially based...
An earlier one.
An earlier one, yeah. Well, yeah, kind of around the same time, but on either side. Around the Iraqi dinar. Maybe this one I'd heard about a bit more. I don't think I'd heard of NESARA at all until we talked about it, but I'd heard sort of reference to the Iraqi dinar.
Well, the reason why I say it is earlier, because the Iraqi dinar scandal relates to the Gulf War. And of course, there are two Gulf Wars.
Yes.
Both waged by a president called Bush, but one waged by a father and the other waged by a son. And so it's true the Iraqi dinar scandal had a resurgence with the second Gulf War under W. Bush, but actually the Iraqi dinar scandal goes all the way back to the first Gulf War as waged by H.W. Bush. So the Iraqi dinar scandal is initially quite simple, but becomes, like NESARA, incredibly complex with time. So after the first Gulf War, it was claimed by particular people that the US had seized most of the money in Iraqi banks, and they were going to rebuild the country. And then, because the economy of Iraq would increase, all of those government owned bonds in the Iraqi dinar would suddenly become incredibly, what's the word I want to use here? The value of the Iraqi dinar would go up. So the American government was essentially going, look, we're taking this money now, which has virtually no value because we just demolished a country. But then when we rebuild Iraq, the dinar is going to go up in value, and then we can cash those bonds in, and thus we American military personnel and executive branch members will become rich beyond the dreams of creosote. So people said, why don't we buy some dinar as well, and we can get in on that sweet, sweet cash injection?
Yes, no, before your various Gulf wars, the Iraqi dinar was something like $3 to a dinar. In part because Saddam Hussein was a dictator who could sort of could dictate certain things that pumped up its value. But then after the invasion, it crashed completely, and it was around 1,000 dinars to the dollar. So yeah, people did the numbers and said, okay, well, if we get these dinars, which are worth absolutely nothing now, and then they suddenly become worth 3,000 times what they are once Iraq is up and running again, and the Western powers that who actually control everything spike its value, well, then we'll be rich like astronauts. Now that was, as you say, the start of things. A whole bunch of Americans, according to our notes from 8 years ago, tens of thousands of Americans sunk millions of dollars into Iraqi dinars in the hope of these ridiculous returns. But things sort of developed, especially again, as we've talked about already in these conspiracy theories, as the predicted events fail to come to pass. You then start coming up with excuses for why it hasn't happened yet, but why it is definitely still going to. And yeah, there was all the stories of secret 1-800 numbers, non-disclosure agreements that people have been forced into, undiscovered mineral riches somewhere that were going to turn everyone's fortunes around, government tax shelters set up for dinar windfalls. There are claims that supposedly the US government had trillions of dinars. Your Bill Gateses and your Warren Buffetts had massive fortunes of dinars that they were going to become even more rich by selling. And so this eventually it lasted until the age of Twitter, which I got on Twitter in 2008, as I recall, and it had been around a little while before then. But so it's sort of mid to late 2000s. It's still ticking. And again, the same thing. Supposedly there were these sealed indictments that were going to be opened. The nationwide martial law was imminent. Mass arrests were taking place that were going to get everything back the way it was supposed to be and unlock all this bottomless cash that everyone can get into as long as they've bought enough Iraqi dinars. In 2018, we said this is still a live theory today, with people claiming the revalue day is just around the corner. Do you know if it's still a thing in the year of our Lord 2026?
So the last time I looked into this was a few years ago, and there were still people on places like Reddit and the like who were going, it's going to happen soon. So if you look at the kind of the genealogy of the belief in the Iraqi dinar reevaluation, after the first Gulf War, people were going, well, it's taking a long time for the American government to do the rebuilding. And then, of course, actually the Saddam Hussein regime continued to be in power. So then the second Gulf War occurred. Right, and this is it. This is the point where the reevaluation will occur because of reconstruction. So for at least the first 10 years, people were going, well, American intervention militarily is going to be really successful for the Middle East and also, coincidentally, really successful for my bank account. But after the second Gulf War, it kind of all starts to peter out, and that's where the really strange views come forward, including the idea that they're keeping the Iraqi dinar devalued because of the existence of a Stargate network in Iraq. So it doesn't just go supernatural, it goes science fictional as well.
Excellent.
But there are still websites like Dinar Chronicles and the like, who at least in April of 2025 claim that the dinar was about to surge in value. And that's in part because the people who invested large sums of money into the dinar are still alive and are ever hopeful that they haven't made a bad investment. So there are still websites devoted to it's coming. It just hasn't come yet. In fact, actually, I found a dinar reevaluation claim from January of this year, where apparently the US Federal Reserve is about to put a lot of money into the Iraqi central bank, which will mean that the evaluation is going to happen, although they do admit no reevaluation date is confirmed at this time, but it is just around the corner.
Right. I do have to wonder if the rise of crypto has done anything to that, because there is an actual case where you had, when your Bitcoin and the like first came out, they were just sort of a novelty. And people genuinely did become fabulously wealthy by getting some Bitcoin very, very early on, and then suddenly they were worth 10,000 times what they used to be. So there is an example people can actually point to of something like this happening. So I could imagine that could possibly stimulate other sorts of things of people saying, "Oh, yeah, what happened to crypto? Yeah, look, if it could happen to crypto, it can happen to the Iraqi dinar." Or something. I don't know, but I can imagine scenarios that could fuel conspiracy theories like Iraqi dinar reevaluation stuff into the present day, I guess is what I'm saying.
In fact, I'm looking at a website which its last update was the 12th of this month.
Ooh, when gravity turned off. It all comes back around to Project Anchor. Look at that.
It does indeed. The more dinar you have, the more leverage you have, the more negotiating power. Essentially, they're arguing that, look, if you just tell banks that you have a large amount of dinar, then they're going to go, oh, you want to buy more? We're not going to charge you an exchange fee for buying more dinar. Negotiate with your banks now. So they are encouraging people to keep on buying Iraqi dinar.
And the more dinar you have, presumably the heavier they are, and you have them stored in some sort of Scrooge McDuck kind of money vault, and then when gravity turns off, the coins all float around you, and
you build a suit out of dinar notes to cushion you from the fall from 15 meters.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. It all makes perfect sense, except for when it doesn't. So yeah. Project Anchor, interesting little blip, and more interesting in that people like it actually got talked about kind of widely for a short while. For something that really does seem to be like a silly little thing, and a thing that, as you say, it's not entirely certain that anyone anywhere actually believed it, but nevertheless, it did the rounds. And
I imagine there are actually quite a lot of attempts to replicate Birds Aren't Real, which then get a flash in the pan. They get noted, but no one plays the game. And my suspicion is Project Anchor is precisely that kind of thing, because it gives you there's the retracted paper thing, and no one's kind of followed up on that to go, well, here's some quotes from it. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people really do believe this, and maybe by the time we meet in a fortnight's time, there'll be a large number of, I can't believe it didn't happen. But for the time being, I think it's reasonable to assume this may not be a theory that people believed. It may be a theory that people talked about, but not one which was a serious belief by anyone in particular.
Yep. So there we go. That's Project Anchor and conspiracy theories that make predictions about the future more generally. So that is the end of the main portion of this episode, but we still, of course, have to go and record a bonus episode for our beloved patrons. Those who, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong here, our patrons do generally float a few inches off the ground just in normal circumstances due to the purity and benevolence of them. Because as far as I'm aware, our patrons float naturally, like regardless of the gravitational conditions. They're just their general buoyant personalities and purity of spirit sees them hovering a couple of inches off the ground in all circumstances.
But Josh, that suggests that our patrons make up the majority of the population of the planet Earth, because that might explain why nobody noticed what happened.
Maybe gravity just doesn't work for most people because they're all patrons of our podcast. If only there was some way of checking exactly how many patrons we have, but as far as I'm aware, that technology isn't available to us. So we'll just have to record a bonus episode and fling it out there and assume that all 8 billion people on the planet will be looking at it. So I guess we should probably make it good. Shame then that all we really have is we have an update on the whole Reckless Ben Lego being stolen. There have been actual developments in the case. There's been a bit of political shenanigans at home involving a surprising number of politicians called Chris. We have quite the Chris surplus here in this country, but the short version is that Chris said something about Chris. Chris was involved, and also Chris had comments to say about it afterwards. More detail on that, and a bit of Charlie Kirk stuff. He's back. Well, when I say he's back in the news, his death,
his corpse, his corpse is back in the news.
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't watched the televised stuff, but so yeah, we'll talk about a bit of that. And so, if you want to hear about that, and you're a patron, that's just fine and dandy. You don't need to do a damn thing. If you're not a patron, just go to patreon.com and look for the Podcaster's Guide to the... damn it, I'm going to look it up now. I'm going to look it up right now. I always say this every time, and I say you should just search for us, because it's probably easier than... Okay, so if I find it, I can give you the actual URL, because I'm a professional podcaster, and this is what we do. We just make stuff up on the spot. Okay, if you go to patreon.com Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy, that's the actual URL, or you could just search for the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy, or you could search for the name Dentith, because frankly, Dr. Dentith, your name is fairly, obviously not unique, but rare enough that you pop up in the first search results. So anyway, there are numerous ways, is what I'm saying. What I'm getting at is that there are many ways you can go to patreon.com and find the Podcaster's Guide to Conspiracy and sign yourself up as a patron. So quite frankly, you don't have an excuse. So with that in mind...
Well, unless you've got a financial excuse. I mean, that's perfectly fine, but otherwise, no excuse whatsoever.
Yes. Or if you just don't want to, I guess. I mean,
that is not a good enough excuse. No.
Okay,
no.
Fine. Yep, you heard it first. But regardless of how you get your way to your Patreon page and what your excuse for not signing up to it is, goodbye to you all, each and every one of you.
I'm off to reevaluate my dinars.
Mm. The Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy features Josh Addison and Associate Professor M.R.X. Dentith. Our producers are a mysterious cabal of conspirators known as Tom, Philip, and another who is so mysterious that they remain anonymous. You can contact us electronically via podcastconspiracy@gmail.com, or join our Patreon and get access to our Discord server. Or don't, I'm not your mum. And remember, he who laughs last is standing behind you right now.